Here's the deal. Sales isn't about pushing harder, talking faster, or flooding inboxes. That's noise, not strategy. Real business development? It's about presence, precision, and knowing exactly how the room feels before you open your mouth. Jake Stahl, author of Own the Room, How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected, has spent over 30 years training teams across 6 countries and 47 states, teaching solopreneurs how to turn conversations into conversion. Known as the mind mechanic, people who have been trained by him say he has the uncanny ability to break down human behavior and rebuild it into real, repeatable influence. This is where communication becomes your unfair advantage. Welcome to Own the Room with Jake Stahl.
Jake, have you ever almost said I love you to a prospect on a call?
I'm not sure it was with a prospect, but I have almost said it because I get so used to getting off the phone with my wife and going, love you. And it sometimes wants to carry over. So, yeah, I've been there.
Oh my gosh, yesterday I just about did that and I stopped myself. Talk about first impressions. I almost said it in the first 10 seconds of a call. And I don't know why I was all flustered. I was running maybe 30 seconds late and I wasn't sure if I was in that like time to apologize for being late range or if it was still like acceptable. And then it's just this awkward and I almost said I love you to the person and literally from there she could tell I was so flustered. And thankfully, she was a really nice lady, but needless to say, I didn't get the business, and the call kind of went down from there.
So, did it actually come out? Did you actually say it, or were you partway through it, or did you just think it and almost start saying it?
I started. I was kind of. I love that we're here right now. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more, and then you start second guessing everything that you're saying, so it just makes it even more awkward. And then, so I never told her I love you, but she could tell that I was just having some issues.
That's really funny. That might have closed the sale for you.
Depends. I guess I was charming in a way.
Yeah. I mean, in some novels, that probably would have been cute and romantic.
Far
Oh,
from it in
goodness.
sales, right? First impressions are everything. And I swear, I mean, I don't know what would have happened. I can't go back in time and change that. But I do
Yeah.
wonder how the outcome of the call could have maybe been different if my first impression was stronger or at least not really awkward.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny, John, because social psychologists and psychologists have studied this and they found that the brain makes a rapid judgment in the first 2 to 10 seconds. But what's really weird is that it does it in a couple of areas. It looks at the person's competence, their confidence, trustworthiness, authority, and emotional stability. So the brain almost takes a sample of your behavior in the first 2 to 10 seconds and then makes a judgment call. And psychologists call this thin slicing.
Thin slicing, like how I like my ham?
Yeah, exactly.
Thin, thinly
Exactly right.
sliced. Okay.
Yes. It's funny because it was coined by a Harvard social psychologist, Naledi Ambati, and then really brought to the mainstream by Malcolm Gladwell. So
Okay.
this was really thrown into the public, and I don't think people understand how accurate it is. The brain's ability to judge someone in that time period is staggeringly accurate. And second, very, very hard to reverse.
Hmm.
So, in a nutshell, people don't wait for your explanation. They decide first, then they listen selectively.
Hmm. Interesting. Tell me more about that.
All right. So, they actually did a really, really cool study. They took students and they showed them a 2 to 10 second silent video clip of college professors. No audio, no content. And the students had to rate them in 3 categories: confidence, competence, and effectiveness. Now, what's really wild was this was only a 2 to 10 second clip. And yet those ratings closely matched end of semester evaluations from students who had spent months with these professors.
Huh.
So think about how staggering that is for a second. 2 seconds of how someone moves and carries themselves predicted the same judgment as a full semester of teaching.
So it sounds like one of two things are happening. Either those teachers are really consistent, or those 2 seconds, that impression set the tone for how they were viewed for the rest of the semester.
Correct. And honestly, when people do make that judgment, they spend a lot of the rest of the time that they're together trying to A,
Mm.
look for things to justify that judgment, and B, ignoring things that go against their first impression.
Hmm.
So
That
the
makes sense.
brain actively tries to say, your first 2 to 10 seconds were right, and I'm going to find things to justify that and ignore things that don't.
That's the reticular activating system at work. We've talked about that in the past.
Yes. And what's funny is thin slicing works without words. That's the really cool part here, too. So the 2 to 10 seconds was silence, no audio. And that matched what students who spent a whole semester with them hearing them verbally noticed themselves.
Huh.
So the silence, your presence means everything. The observers had no access to content, no credentials, no background, and yet they still made consistent judgments about their leadership, warmth, and authority.
So it's built into us. We don't need a social psychology degree to figure this stuff out.
Correct. And it really says something that means a lot for the solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that listen to this show. Your delivery is louder than your offer. So if you go back to a Zoom call or something that you had the video and audio on, like maybe a Fathom recording or an autopilot recording, if you turn the sound off and watch yourself, is your delivery strong, on point, filled with leadership, warmth, and authority, or isn't it? So even if you have the best offer on the planet, if that first 2 to 10 seconds of nonverbal cues does not make them want to listen, your offer could be awesome and still you get ghosted.
Now, I wonder how you mentioned those three key concepts, one of them being confidence, right?
Yes.
I wonder how often my lack of confidence
Or
or
wanting to say,
you
I love you.
yeah, well, that helps too, right? And that crushes your confidence, right? When you feel like you're just put them in an extremely awkward place. But
Yeah,
solopreneurs can relate to this. If we lack confidence, we think we're covering that up with our words and with our tightly rehearsed script. We think we're covering up the fact that we lack confidence on the inside, but you're saying they can see that and they can see it quick.
correct. And I think the quote I used in the book, Own the Room, how to be, how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected, was their ability to read you is far better than your ability to perform.
Yes, that is exactly what you said.
Right? So
Yes.
that's the scary part. And once that decision is made, and you know what? Let's take a track back for a second. We talked about in one of our previous episodes about confirmation bias. That's really what these first impressions are doing. Once someone forms a first impression, they look for evidence to confirm it, and contradictory data is discounted or ignored,
Yep.
just like confirmation bias.
Yes.
So when somebody says they liked me, but it didn't go anywhere, or the call was great, then they ghosted, that person made their decision before you even started talking. And they made the decision and politely did not tell you that decision
Mhm.
until they ghosted you later,
Yeah,
which is
because are you
when
gonna
they
tell
told
somebody
you.
that you made the decision? I mean, I'm not gonna tell somebody that your first impression sucked. I mean, you let them down easy. Most people do anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the distinction we want to make here is thin slicing isn't judgmental. It's biological. It's something we do without any conscious thought whatsoever.
Hmm.
You think about 2 to 10 seconds, it's not a long time. And if we consciously try to read someone in 2 to 10 seconds, we're not going to do it near as good as our brain does it automatically in the background,
True.
right?
True. Yeah, and that makes sense because it's already built into us, like you said, it's biological.
Yeah. And think about what the people are reading. They're reading your posture, your facial tension. In cases where they can hear you, they're listening to your voice steadiness and your pace and your breathing pattern. And again, this is so staggering that the brain takes all of that unconsciously, bakes a first impression into your brain that is then there presumably forever.
Here's an
So,
interesting off top before you dive into what you were going to say. I'm sorry to cut you
no,
off, but
that's
I
okay. Go
got to
ahead.
ask this. It's unrelated a little bit, and it's honestly something that people might think I'm a little sick in the head for wondering. But is
Can't wait to
this
hear this.
yeah, is this why like horrible world leaders gain so much power? Like you think about Hitler, right? And Hitler's first impression was one of charisma and one of I'm going to unify and it amazes us looking back in history that people had such a hard time condemning Hitler's awful egregious actions. But was it because of the concept of the first impression? The fact that their brains would go to great lengths to ignore everything bad and only take out the good and certainly not just Hitler but all influential world leaders.
Well, and it's very possible. And think about this, it may not even be just charisma, it may be fear. So if
Mm.
people read that they are aggressive and you're afraid of them in the first 10 seconds, that's as equally potent as
Okay,
deciding that this person's charismatic and friendly, right? So
makes
it doesn't
sense.
always have to be a good read. It can be a holy crap, I'm really afraid of this person read.
True. So that can work in a lot of different ways and it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
You would think our judgment as humans is better than that. You would think the first impression wouldn't mean as much as it does.
Well, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess would be, John, if you speak on, the evolution of people before we really had language and before we could really communicate well, this is all we could rely on. So we couldn't stand around deciding that a tiger was dangerous. Our brain had to go, hey, listen, this thing's not good. And
True.
you didn't even have to think about that. You're already running in the opposite direction as fast as you can go. So this, in my opinion, is a survival mechanism more than anything that now can work against us as solopreneurs. And it really says that how you speak determines whether what you say even gets processed.
Mm,
So that
seems
first couple of
unfair.
seconds on a Zoom call or at a networking meeting is already determining whether you're out of the room or not.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to be as repulsive as a tiger to a potential prospect or as threatening as a tiger or as awkward as I was the other day.
Yeah. And, when you look at like documentaries, like they did a documentary on Ted Bundy, the one thing everybody said was super charismatic, friendly.
Mhm.
You want to talk to him.
Yeah.
So the first impressions override any danger the victims may have felt because in the first 2 to 10 seconds, you're like, oh, he's friendly, he's charismatic. And so then your brain keeps saying, don't worry, he's friendly, he's charismatic.
Yes, and from the perspective of that's the other way I was going with that is obviously horrible world leaders, and then you talk about, abuse cases or even
Yeah.
murder cases or, cases where you go, "Well, why wouldn't she just leave?" Or why wouldn't he just get out of that bad situation? It's as clear as day that that's not gonna end well.
Yes.
Well, maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, it's very possible. And I think the other thing we need to think here is that expertise isn't going to override a poor signal. And this is the one that hurts us as solopreneurs. So if I am extremely knowledgeable on a topic, that's not going to rescue me from rushed energy, over
Mm,
explaining, approval seeking, a defensive tone. None of my expertise is going to override any of that.
makes
So,
sense.
as business owners, we need to be super careful. So, one thing I do, John, and they can feel free to send hate mail in, but if I'm in a particularly bad mood, I will cancel a meeting because
Huh.
I don't want that to come across in the meeting. And part of it is this thin slicing thing. If I can't hide it and I'm feeling it, I'm almost positive they're going to feel it on their side. And the
Yeah.
couple of times I didn't do this, I paid the price for it.
Wow. That sucks. It
It
really
does.
does. But there's got to be a way. You didn't turn on this episode just to hear all doom and gloom, right? And
Right.
watch
Exactly.
out, first 2 to 10 seconds, you're gonna screw yourself over like John did when he almost told the prospect he loved her. Um, there's got to be a way to spin this for our good as solopreneurs too, right?
Yeah, there is. I would say, though, for the comic book fans out there, in some alternate universe, John, you started with I love you, and that person became your highest paying client.
Yeah. In some universe, one that I'm not
Right?
familiar with.
Just not this one.
Yeah.
All right. There are things you can do to help your thin slicing go better. So, to make a great first impression, the first one is slow down by about 10 or 15%.
Mm,
Now, when I say by 10 or 15%, I mean not more than that. Don't pull an Eeyore and slow it way down. Just make sure you don't come across as fast speech. That
mm,
signals anxiety, overimportance, uncertainty. So deliberately slow everything that you do by about 10 to 15%. Nothing
mhm,
dramatical, nothing theatrical, just enough to signal control. Because a calm pace is equivalent to leadership. A rushed pace signals neediness. So, rule one, deep breath, slow down by 10 to 15%.
I love how you just actually did that while you
Thank
were
you.
explaining how to do it.
Thank you.
That's
Appreciate that.
really cool. It signals confidence too, right? I mean, like
Yes.
I think somebody who's kind of rushing, I think when I was not confident when I first got on that call, like I started speeding up my speech and didn't signal a lot of confidence. So I hear you. 10 to 15%.
Yep. The second is lead with a declarative frame. And what I mean by that is thin slicing really punishes tentative openings. So I hear this a lot with my clients. They get on the phone and they say, I just wanted to, or this might sound weird, but, and the one I hate more than anything. So to the audience, if you're saying this, stomp it out, kill it, don't ever do it again, is they'll say, I don't know if this applies to you. All of those things are saying, I'm really tentative about this. I need to put a declarative in front of it, and I just need to show you that I'm really hesitant. If you say I don't know if this applies to you, turn that into something stronger. So maybe you want to go with something like, here's what I'm seeing with solopreneurs right now, and then put in whatever the problem is that you solve. Or, Mr. Prospect, there's a pattern most people miss, and then put in the pain point and your solution. But eliminate the I just wanted to, this might sound weird, I don't know if this applies. Get rid of those.
Okay. I do this a lot. This is good to know. How about if you're open to it?
Well, now, if you're open to it, is actually pretty good, but don't
Really?
lead with it. Put that at the end.
It's almost like with a lot of these phrases, you're looking for acceptance. You're looking for like, well, if they nod or if they give me a yes, now I feel confident enough. My confidence hinges on their response. And you're saying
Correct.
that is not good.
Yep. So you want to really just claim the moment and be certain and strong about it.
Yes.
The third is drop the context and add clarity.
Yep.
Over contexting is a thin slice killer. What that means is don't go into a long setup. Some people go into this long, drawn out story as to why they're relevant and why they should be hired. And, the ones you see most are the ones that say, we're number one with all the Fortune 500 companies and we've been around for 600 years. Great. But the way people really interpret long setup explanations is a lack of confidence, fear of being misunderstood, and mental clutter.
Mm,
So get to your point first. Provide long context about yourself if invited to,
mm,
because
mhm.
excess context reads as self doubt. If you have to build yourself up so much in the beginning, then what you have to say is secondary and it shows that you're just not confident in what you have to say.
It's a lot like dating, isn't it?
It really is.
Like, who wants to be with that guy or that girl who tells all the background stories and all the just because they don't feel comfortable and confident enough in themselves,
Yes.
it signals that they feel like they're with someone out of their league, right? Because here I am, I'm talking about like my high school football days, which aren't really worth talking about, by the way, but I'm talking about my high school football days and, exaggerating some of these stories so that I feel like I'm on par with you. But if I have to do that to feel like I'm on par with you, that signals a lack of confidence to begin with.
Yeah. And how many times have all of us been on the date where we're like, they don't know much about me because they never asked. I
Oh,
didn't get a word in
ouch.
edgewise the whole time we were together.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the
So,
first three things.
number 4, stabilize your body before you speak. Remember, thin slicing happens before words are spoken. So if you're fidgety, forward leaning, tense, bouncing, jittery, looking around, the signal is urgent, not seeking. And nobody wants to talk to somebody who urgently wants to tell them about themselves, right?
No.
So before you get started, before that Zoom call even starts, put both feet on the floor. Push down a little bit, feel the earth under your feet, drop your shoulders, don't pull them up all tense. And last but not least, breathe. Inhale and exhale real deep a couple of times. Do the box breathing we talked about in a previous episode. 4 in, hold for 4, 4 out, and then hold your breath out for 4 seconds. Do that 3 or 4 times before a call. It really stabilizes your parasympathetic nervous system and allows you to look more stable and in control on the call.
I would also say know your little triggers, know your little
Good point.
like my little thing. I got too many of them, but one thing I do is I kind of swing back and forth. It's like, well, that's probably like dizzying to the pros. Like, what the hell are you doing? And then the other thing I start doing, I see a lot of people do this too. I know I'm not alone on this one, is I nod way too much. Like they say hello. I'm like, yeah, yeah, hello, hi. How are you today? Good, good, good. And it's like, I know you're trying too hard to signal warmth and comfort and agreement, right? Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I agree that the weather is great today."
Yep.
That you're losing you're probably portraying an extreme insecurity through little things like that. So just know your little habits that need to be broken.
Good point. Yeah, that is a very strong point.
I agree, I agree.
Good point. All
And number
right.
5.
The last is end sentences cleanly. Now, here's what I mean. This is subtle yet powerful. You will hear people rise in their inflection at the end of a sentence. My name is Jake. Would you like my services? You get that upward inflection. And what that is that's a signal of uncertainty and actually subconscious question asking. And we've all talked to those people. Yesterday I was at the dry cleaner and I was walking down the street. You get that upward at the end.
Yeah,
Instead, let sentences land downward. So today I'd like to talk about my services. And John, it's very important that we meet this deadline. So the end of the sentence is downward. Even if you end it neutral, that's more clean than ending it on an upward tone.
agreed.
Because remember, authority isn't volume, it's finality. That's the thing to keep in mind.
That's one thing that signals, again, uncertainty, lack of confidence. And it's so obvious when you say it. I'm John. I think I want to work with you.
Right.
Like, you're like, no. But it sounds funny when we make an example out of it
Yeah.
and we isolate it. But I feel like a lot of people do this sometimes without realizing. I know I certainly do.
Yeah. And once you become aware of it, again, pulling from the book, once you see these things, you'll never be able to unsee it. And it may even drive you a little crazy, but it's better to be conscious of it than non-conscious of it.
Yes.
So, John,
Agreed.
just a quick review. Slow down by 10 to 15%. Lead with the declarative frame. So here's what I'm seeing with solopreneurs right now. Here's a pattern that most people miss. Drop your context and add clarity. Don't over explain things, especially in the beginning. Wait to be invited. Stabilize your body before you speak. Ground your feet. Drop your shoulders. Take a few deep box breaths. You'll be good. And then last but not least is end your sentences cleanly.
I love it. That's game changing right there, but also easier said than done. You're equipped with those 5 things. Now you got to go practice them because I know you can't just change those habits. Even if you do so intentionally, you can't just change them on the fly. That might actually take some consistent intentional practice.
Yeah. And John, the best way to do this is to take it in bite sized chunks. So maybe the first thing you do for a week is just be very conscious in your calls about slowing down to 10 to 15%.
Mhm.
Then the next week, you slow down 10 to 15% and you ground yourself before the call. So add something on each week so you can practice it without feeling overwhelmed and create yourself a thin slice self audit. Write these 5 things down and look through a recording that you just did of a meeting and just do an audit. Did you do these things? Did anything penetrate? Because again, we all practice our verbiage. We all think persuasion is talking pretty and slick, but persuasion starts before you say the first word. And in the first 2 to 10 seconds, people are deciding whether you're it or you're out.
And that's so powerful. And it's important to master those first few seconds. And now we have the tools and we're equipped to do so.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to remind the audience before we take off here that Jake has more of these wise takes here and actually runs you through the strata framework in his book, Own the Room. If you don't have your copy yet, the link is down in the show notes. So just go down there, grab the book. This is absolutely brilliant, Jake. I got
Thank you.
to had the chance of reading it even before it became public, and then also had the chance to work with you, the honor of working with you on the audiobook for this. Brilliant stuff in here. If you enjoyed the episode today, you're going to enjoy the stuff that's in this book. It goes even deeper than what we talked about with first impressions today and the acronym strata. So Own the Room, link down in the show notes. Grab that book if you haven't yet already.
Thanks for checking out Own the Room with Jake Stahl. If you've gotten value from this episode, share it with the solopreneur in your life who wants to know how to communicate to be seen, heard, and respected. Review and rate the show wherever you check out podcasts. And grab your copy of Own the Room, How to Communicate to be Seen, Heard, and Respected. We'll catch you next week on Own the Room.